This is Melanie with UnHinged magazine, and I am here with Bre-L.
Hi.
Hi. Bre-L is an alternative rock band that was formed in 2014 by lead singer Brianna Lynn out of her living room of her Burbank home. Almost immediately, their cover of the Grimes song Oblivion was added to Spotify's Discover Weekly and had almost 2 million streams. After a 6-year hiatus, Brianna Lynn reformed Bre-L to continue the work the band began. So let's talk.
Yeah.
So what is going on after a 6-year hiatus that made you get back into this?
Yeah, so basically, when I formed this band initially, before I kind of made it a solo project, I'd been working with a couple of guys who I'd been playing with for many years on my other solo project, and we were like, you know what? Let's get together, let's write together, and let's make a band. And so we did. We had that initial success with our I Think About You album, which was super awesome. And then we kind of decided, you know what, I think we want to kind of go separate ways. I was going to go get my college education. A couple of them were, starting families, doing other projects, etc. So we decided to take a break. And then after about 6 years, I realized that I wanted to kind of continue the work that we had started, but I wanted to make sure, I wanted to do it kind of in a different way. My band members were still off doing their own thing. So I decided to kind of take on the Bre-L persona myself, since I had been the one writing all the songs, mostly, with obviously their contribution, but I kind of was the lead person in that. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to take on the Bre-L persona and kind of create and like morph it and evolve it into something that really represents who I am as an artist, who I am as a musician now, which is kind of moving away from the alternative rock genre and going more into like the indie funk, the pop funk sound. And so that's kind of what I'm doing.
So who would you, when you say the indie pop funk sound, who would you compare your now style to?
So it's kind of like a mixture of a couple different artists. I have gotten a lot of inspiration from really like older funk icons, kind of like, Stevie Wonder, got a little bit of like Prince in there, Sly and the Family Stones especially. But then I also kind of mixed it in with this more modern sound of artists like Dua Lipa, Harry Styles' New Direction, The Weeknd. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bring like the golden era of funk R&B kind of, and just mix it with kind of the Billboard topping, the chart topping artists, the modern artists we have now, to make sure that an audience now is able to kind of still connect to my music while still having that like amazing musicality that older artists had.
Right. Now, see, I'm old school, like I'm older, so, and I'm way older than you. So I love those old styles. Motown, in my opinion, is one of the most awesome eras in music, period.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm excited to hear your stuff.
Yeah.
So what first got you into music? How did you realize that you were a musician?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a thing that I couldn't help but be a musician. Like my family, my immediate family was not very musical at the time. It was my parents, my younger brothers, and but from the time I was young, I was singing just constantly. Like I feel just so bad for my teachers, because I would literally be like running down the halls of my school just like and they hated it. But I realized from a young age that like singing especially and music was the way for me to express myself. And so I kind of started doing a little bit of musical theater, and then I moved to Los Angeles from Illinois with my family, and I started really kind of pursuing artistry. And so I've been doing it for a really long time. I've been training as a vocalist since I was about 9 years old. And yeah, it's just always been something that's been a part of my life. Like I honestly, at one point I kind of tried to walk away from it because I got super burnt out on the music industry. But then after like a year of like not playing music, I was like, you know what, this is not the kind of life that I want. Like music is so intrinsically a part of who I am that if I walk away from it, I'm actually going to lose myself. So yeah, I just can't not play music.
Right. Now, when you say you started training at 9, was that professional training, or was that you learning on your own?
No, that was professional vocal training. So I've been training as a vocalist for probably like 16 years. No, maybe 15 or 16 years, like, on and off, but like, especially during my early years, I was just doing like weekly vocal training.
Right. So what is your creative process like? Do you sit down, when you go to write a song, do you start with a beat and a melody, or do you start with some lyrics? How do you start something?
It depends. I mean, my creative process can happen in a couple different ways. So, one of the most recent songs that I wrote, I was, feeling a lot of feelings, and so I sat down at the piano and I recorded like a couple piano licks, and then I left it alone for a couple of days. And then, as when I was like feeling those feelings again, I was like, let's go back to that piano lick and write lyrics over them. So I've done that. I've also, my creative process before was really like over the last, couple years ago was really about starting with lyrics and then making melodies over that. But I've kind of moved away from that into being a little bit more melody focused, so that when I do create a melody, it doesn't seem like it was just tacked on. It doesn't seem like, oh, like she just threw a melody on there to help her lyrics. I'm really wanting to make sure that the songs that I write are well rounded, where the parts work together really well. So as of right now, I've been definitely a little bit more writing the piano part and then moving into the lyrics and the melody. That's kind of what I've been doing.
So do you mainly start with like doing all piano, or do you introduce other instruments at the beginning of the process, or does that come in, like, do you build that in?
It depends. So recently, because I've been working more with funk, I also play bass. So I've been doing a lot of like bass work, because funk is so built off of these really strong bass lines. And so, in the last couple of songs that I've written, especially, I've kind of like taken the bass and like figured out a bass line, then transferred it onto the piano, written piano parts around that, and then created like lyrics and melody to that. Just because I want to make sure that it has that really strong backing. And then obviously once I go into the production with it, then I'll add all the other instruments. I'll add kind of like the funky guitar and then adding the drums and all that stuff. But yeah, the main instruments my songs now are based on are definitely bass and piano.
That's amazing. Tell me about like what you have coming up. Do you have an album out that's out now? Do you have one coming up? What's going on in the Bre-L world?
Yeah, I actually am producing an album right now. So it's been interesting because, when we kind of hit quarantine, like I hadn't had really any plans of like releasing a new album anytime soon. I was kind of like doing a lot of performing. But then once quarantine happened, I was kind of like, all right, you know what? This is my time now to learn how to produce my own stuff. I don't need to rely on anybody else and go into a professional studio to like and pay a lot of money in order to get my album out. I can do production. I can play all these instruments. So I'm going to do this myself. And so like I got really inspired by how much time I suddenly had. And I started producing my album. So that's kind of what I'm in right now. I'm like currently in that production phase. So I have a couple songs done and I'm working on a couple more. I'm probably gonna have around like a 5-6 song album. And so my hope is that I'm gonna be able to release that, mid late this year. But it also depends on kind of where we're at as, with our economy, with our society, making sure that release is going to be well received based on what's going on in our world. So still kind of not sure when that's going to be coming out, but it definitely is in the works and it definitely will be coming out sometime soon.
What advice do you have for females getting into this industry, to where they're taken seriously and not projected or portrayed as, you know how it is. I mean, you don't want to be portrayed as a sex object, but yet you've got to, be able to promote yourself. So what's your advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think there's a couple things to keep in mind with that. The first, I would say, is to, whatever industry you're getting into, identify the other females in that industry and reach out to them for either mentorship, advice, ask them a couple questions, get to know them a little bit so that you don't feel so alone. The second thing I would say is to really make sure that you believe in yourself as a professional, because if you treat yourself as a professional, you will demand that respect from other people in your industry. Like, I know for myself, like when I became knowledgeable about producing and about musicianship, about, playing my instruments, about knowing music theory, I was able to speak knowledgeably on that subject and people couldn't help but take me seriously because I took myself seriously and I knew what I was talking about, and so that, I think the main thing is just making sure that you're good at what you do. And if you're good at what you do, like, and you hold yourself with respect, it's really, I have not had many problems, honestly, with having people take me super seriously when I started doing that. I think the thing that I would caution women of doing is, yes, we do have this, like, we have this sexiness that we're able to employ, and we absolutely should be empowered with that because, hell, that's like something that we have at our advantage and we can do whatever we want with that. And there's no shame in using that in whatever way we want to. But making sure that we don't feel like we have to rely on that in order to make ourselves be known or taken seriously, because we have so much more to offer than just that. We have our knowledge, we have our, you know, I'm not even going to say dignity, because obviously there's dignity in doing whatever you want, but we have so much more than just needing to use that in order to kind of break into the industry. So I think just, you know, kind of changing our mentality where it's like, all right, no, like I'm a professional, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to go and make sure that other people know that too. I think will get us a lot farther than maybe other tactics of just like, oh, I need to kind of like sneak my way in there, you know, if that makes sense.
So if you were to be able to collaborate with anybody, who would you collaborate with?
Oh, you know, I think it would be a couple different people for different things. Like Stevie Nicks, like you mentioned, like she has always been my idol. Like I'm in love with her. I think she's the most amazing person that's ever existed ever. And I'm so inspired by her as a musician, as an artist, as a person. So I think if I wasn't taking my musical style into consideration, I would want to work with her. Just to learn from her and just to like be in her presence. I've seen her in concert twice and I cried both times. Like I just couldn't help myself. It'd be either her, or I mean, I would love to work with like Harry Styles. You know, his new style is his new style is really, really interesting. Like he's really kind of creating something new for himself. And also Stevie Nicks totally loves him. So I'm like, all right, you get the gold star. And I think our styles would really mix well together. So be either him or like someone like Dua Lipa. I think would be dope to work with her, because she's really venturing into, like, she's still very mainstream pop, but she's adding a lot of really cool aspects that are reminiscent of funk and disco. And so I think working with an artist like her would be really inspiring and would create, I think that collaboration could create something really cool.
So what's the best advice that you've ever received as an artist?
That's a good question. I think that the best advice that I've ever gotten would be to pursue music honestly because you love it, and not because you want to be famous or because you want to be successful. Because like I myself pursued music for a long time because I was like, I want to play stadiums and all that stuff, and I still want to do that. But what I noticed in that journey, and the reason why I got so burned out like I did, was I was only pursuing it really because I wanted to be famous. And when I wasn't reaching that level of fame in the time frame that I wanted to, I was super discouraged, and I started seeing myself differently. Like, why am I not good enough to be successful in this industry? I work so hard. I have everything that it takes. Like, why am I not successful? And then that literally really messed with my mind, where it was just kind of like, why am I even doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And that's why I took a break. And so I think, you know, what I've had other people tell me, and what I've kind of discovered myself, is that you should only be doing music because you can't live without it. And if you have the reward, you know, of success later on, that's just kind of the cherry on top, where it's like, great, now I can actually do this for a living. People are wanting to listen to me. That's awesome. But even if that doesn't happen, you should still have this desire to want to play music because it's who you are, you know? So I think that's probably been the best thing for me. And that's really changed the way that I've seen success, where it's like, I don't define myself by success anymore. You know, I'm still a good person. I'm still valuable as a human being, even if I'm not successful. But now I just find a lot more just joy in the process of making music.
That makes sense. Now, is music your full-time job, or do you have an actual like day job?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I was working at a piano bar for the last 8 months. So I was doing music full time. And then the piano bar actually closed down right before the quarantine happened. And so when it closed down, then I started doing other gigs. I started playing at other bars and restaurants, as well as my own gigs. And then everything shut down. So now kind of what I'm doing is I'm doing a weekly online piano bar, which has been super fun. I've been doing like a live stream where people are able to log on, request songs, and then I play all the songs they want to hear, which has been bringing a little bit of income, you know, with tips and all that, which has been super awesome. But that's kind of what I'm figuring out now. My goal, like I'm a musician. That is my career. That is what I do. And so my goal now, with how kind of the world has changed, is figuring out how to make sure I can still make a living doing music, you know, whether that be through releasing an album and getting money through streaming, through online performances, whatever that looks like. But that's definitely very up in the air right now, I think, as it is for everyone in most industries.
Well, and speaking of touring, so If you were able to tour with anybody, alive or dead, who would that be?
Alive or dead? Oh, I mean, so my initial response to that would be like, I would love to tour with Stevie Wonder. But the thing is, I'd be so in awe of him, like when he played, that I wouldn't feel like I would be worthy enough to like get on the stage before or after him. I'd be like, I'm sorry. Like I very much believe in my own musical ability. I know that I'm a good musician, but I also recognize that he's like one of the best that has ever lived. So I would want to tour with him just to be able to witness him every single night playing music. So yeah, he would probably be like one of them. And then, I mean, honestly, like, I'd probably love to tour with Harry Styles, like, for real. I mean, he, like, because our music matches pretty well, I think it'd be super dope to, like, collaborate with him and, like, tour with him, and he seems like a pretty cool guy. So I think those two would be my touring partners. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, what I'd love to say to my audience is, first of all, stay safe, wash your hands. We've all heard it 1,000 times. We don't need to hear it anymore, but, like, just take care of yourself during this time. Also, I'm going to be releasing an album very soon. If you want to follow me on Instagram at Bre_L music, I'll be like keeping that up to date. Make sure you join me on my piano bar experiences that happen every Thursday night, 6:30 PST. You can see that on Instagram as well. I have the link up there. And yeah, I want to just be able to share music with everyone and, you know, still do performances, still have fun even while we're being quarantined. And, you know, we're gonna get through this together. So it's going to be okay. This is my song Speak Too Soon. This one's going to be on my album. This is the first song that I wrote that kind of actually, you know, inspired me to go into this new direction of a little bit more of a funky sound. So yeah, I'm excited to share it with you guys. If we live forever and could have my pick, I'd still choose this. When we were together, with every wasted kiss, I'd dream of this. Don't wanna speak too soon and kill the mood. All I say is that I want you. I wanna take our time and do this right. If I had my way, baby, you'll be mine. Don't wanna speak too soon, yeah. Don't wanna speak too soon, yeah, yeah. If we had forever, it wouldn't be enough to show my love. If we stay together, I'll never give you up. You have my love. Don't wanna speak too soon and kill the mood. All I say is that I want you. I wanna take our time and do this right. If I had my way, baby, you'll be mine. Don't wanna speak too soon, yeah. Don't wanna speak too soon, yeah, yeah. I don't wanna lose what I finally found. I can't stand the thought of you leaving. And someday I'll say all these things out loud.